Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Ascension eSports Elder League. My name is Stretch, and joining me today is SuruStorm for Elder League week number, I think we're week number 5, something like that?
Something like that. My gut tells me 3, but I could be wrong. 6, based on their match records.
6? We're both wrong.
Yeah, not too drastically, though, so it looks like we'll be able to get a pass this time, I think.
Yep, and we're jumping right into the games here, folks. Already, Sparks Plugs taking that Fizz off the board, and over on the side of looking for GF, they go ahead and ban away the Callista.
Yeah, Callista being strong in this patch. Fizz being a little bit of a mystery to me. Possibly some kind of grudge ban, or something they know the opponents played. The Cho'Gath is a favorite for Flyers, the jungle sub on the side of looking for GF. And Grog's coming out as well. Grog is played by 3 of the players in this game, so it's fairly sensible to take it off the table. Should be interesting to see how this matches up. This one's a bit of a fight for the middle of the pack. These are both teams not rocking the best records in the league. Sparks Plugs with 0-5 and looking for GF with 1-4. Both of them looking to find a much-needed win to help possibly round out their seasons and maybe give them a little bit of an extra boost towards the end to shoot into playoffs.
Just trying to make sure they hit that stride and start on some sort of upward climb here. As you were saying, these teams struggling throughout the season to perform, but it should be an even playing field here today, so should be some interesting games. Over on Sparks Plugs, they round out their first set of bans with the Jacks, and on the side of looking for GF, they hit it up with that Jin ban.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward on the bans so far. The Jax being played a lot by Sabio, and the Jin being played a lot by Deadpool. These are all fairly standard for Elder League, just a lot of respect bans, very rarely something coming through that is powerful enough that it affects games that heavily at this level. Now there's the Orianna pick, very, very safe first pick for mid lane, no losing lane matchups in this current meta, and is a fantastic team fighter and relatively strong at all stages of the game.
Not only that, but it really helps you support your AD carry pick later on as well. Having that additional shield you can throw on them just in case they get dove on is super good if you've got someone who's strong in that marksman position. So I'm really looking to see what these guys end up picking up here for that AD carry slot. On the side of looking for GF, they're going to make their first 2 picks, Gnar and Thresh. A lot of catch potential and some decent initiate there.
Yeah, it looks to be a kind of interesting deathball game so far. Never mind, Lee Sin comes through, not a champion who's fond of the deathball team fights, and Jarvan, who is also in that boat. Now Sparks Plugs drafting a little bit more towards a heavier skirmish game than a team fight, and I'm curious to see how this last pick comes through before moving into the second ban phase. Pardon me. And the second ban phase is usually a lot more interesting in Elder League, to me at least. The first ban phase in Elder is usually just a lot of respect bans, and occasionally you'll get something like the 420 Weedwick that's just so strong you've got to get it off the table. But the second ban phase is a lot more interesting. That's usually where there's things banned more specifically to take away options that counter the comp they're trying to build. It's a lot more playing to the game rather than just taking away from enemy players. And now we'll move into that. The Taliyah coming through, some nice roaming potential. Bit of an odd comp thus far, but nothing too out of the ordinary. I think something was played just a few hours ago by Dignitas that was fairly similar, so obviously it's not a terrible comp, just these 3 picks don't commit them to any style at this point. Rom and Caitlyn coming through, removing bot laners.
Yeah, a lot of flexibility through these team comps so far. You've got the hard initiate on the J4, but it also is very good for peeling back and just making sure that your backline stays safe. And the same can be said for that Taliyah pick. Like you were saying, they're not locked into any style by going for these picks so far, but it does offer them a lot of roaming flexibility and gank potential here. So far, I'm liking these compositions, and looking at these bans as we finish up here, looking for GF, taking away that Braum, as you said before, and rounding out their picks with the Morgana. Looks like they're trying to make sure that they do not have any sort of hard initiates disrupted or any frontal CC disrupted by that Morgana pick. Really wanting to give their Thresh the maximum space to operate in the bottom lane.
Yeah, and banning away the Braum also makes sense for that position. They're taking away some of the more denial supports. Both of these bans have access to a lot of things that shut down the Taliyah, shut down the Thresh in some really big ways. The Braum being able to wall off, to stop the Taliyah's wall from coming through all the way, and the Morgana just being a very uncomfortable lane matchup for the Thresh. Now the Warwick comes through. Now they're starting to siphon themselves into something. They've got this more aggressive mid-game comp where they're going to be rolling around, and they've so many tools to start fights with and to just move with. That'll be very interesting to see. And now Sparks Plugs, they're moving into more of a scaling comp. They want to scale up and have the Orianna get to this teamfight damage point, the Jarvan get to this unstoppable split pusher, and the Tristana become this resetting machine. And the Nautilus will be what they pick to finish that off. That's a bit of an interesting one.
Yeah, full comp here already for Sparks Plugs. So I don't know if the Nautilus might be a placeholder or anything like that, but just based on the picks that we see in front of us, that's an enormous front line depending on how Llama Man ends up playing this J4 up in the top lane. If he is going a tankier Jarvan, it is so difficult to move around that champion and actually get to the back line to try to stop them from dealing damage, and especially when you've got a Tristana just firing and ripping shots out on the back line in the late game if they're able to get there. That's a fantastic setup to defend those backline squishy carries.
Yeah, all kinds of lockdown from the Sparks Plugs. And looking for GF, though, they've finished off their comp going even heavier into this kind of roamy, aggressive, run-you-down kind of composition. I think that'll be super fun to watch, with the Warwick-Sivir combination being super cool. Sivir able to extend Warwick's ultimate range, Taliyah being able to cut things off, and provide a wall for Gnar to smash things into. That should be super fun to watch. Yeah.
Very true. Not only that, but I think their composition is very positioning reliant. You want that Taliyah to be in a spot where she can really use that wall to limit the enemy's retreat paths very well. So it means there might be situations where Spice is not with the enemy, with their team. He wants to be a little bit deeper towards the enemy side of the map, and using that wall to make sure that they can't get to the safety of their turrets, or they can't get to these objectives, so they can just sort of trap them in, corral them in, and then hunt them down with that Sivir Warwick combo you were talking about. A lot of interesting possibilities here for looking for GF.
Yeah, and I have to favor their comp over Sparks Plugs' comp. I really think it has a bit more synergy with itself. It has a bit more flexibility in how it can play out, and it has a more even power curve. They've got champions who are strong mid and early game, things like the Warwick here, and the Thresh being frankly able to just do things at all stages of the game. And then they've got their more scaling picks. They've got the Sivir and the Gnar, who will do a lot of things late game. I think Sparks Plugs' comp is interesting, but the Nautilus is very odd to me in how it functions within the team. There is a lot of lockdown there, but it seems somewhat unnecessary with how you're building the comp, that doesn't set up the Tristana or his initiators quite as well as another support could, like a Taric, who provides not the same level of a follow-up initiation as the Nautilus, but it does provide slightly more peel and a lot more overall teamfight utility. Taric just being one example, and many other supports. But
whenever I see a Tristana, I always expect the team to go, okay, we got the late game scaling, we got the turret pressure of this Tristana, and much like you would have a Jinx comp, you want something that's going to bolster the late game potential of that AD carry in terms of their damage and offer a lot of peel. And the first champion for the support role that comes to mind is Janna. You just want to be able to throw the shield on them, be able to be in a good position for peeling, and just set them up for huge damage in the late game. But with that Thresh pickup, it feels like support or feed just got a little bit scared away from that style of pick and decided to go for something a little bit tanky just in case they get hooked. And I feel like that's just not a mindset you can have. It's this Nautilus pick, while it may do well, I feel like like you were saying, there's just other support picks that can slide into that role that just fit the mold so much better.
But at the end of the day, comfort is a huge factor, and if support or feed really feels, there we go. Nautilus being his second most played champ this season, definitely just a comfort pick coming through, which is understandable. When you need a win, sometimes it's good to just default, okay, everyone's playing their mains, we're not running any of this. Ziggs 80 carry crap. We're gonna pick our straightforward stuff and we're gonna do what we can with it. And that definitely makes sense. When you're on a losing streak, it's a good way to just try and break it. Is pick with comfort and hope that pulls you through.
Yeah. That being said, I've been Orianna Taliyah matchup. I feel like Orianna's got a lot of, like you were saying, there's a lot of flexibility in that lane. There's a lot of control with that Orianna lane. What are some of the things that Orianna can be doing to try to limit the movement and the side lane roams out of the Taliyah pick here?
She's not as good as punishing it as other mid laners, so you just really have to rely on your ability to shove in a wave as quickly as you can as soon as Taliyah's off your radar. She also doesn't have as much speed to follow it as other mid laners, so it's a bit tricky for the Orianna. But so long as you're communicating well with your team and you aren't getting too shoved in onto yourself to the point where you have, 12 casters and 6 melee minions cracking on your turret,
right,
you should be able to punish the Taliyah appropriately and not lose too much, provided you're playing well. But that can always fall back, and we'll have to see how things play out. Also kind of hard to start to predict things in games like this where there's a total of 4 subs, I believe, across the 2 teams.
Oh yeah, so definitely a lot of differences in communication or expectations with the new bloods on the teams. But that being said, we are already in the matchup here. Got this little bit of a dark screen section going on, but I do want to take a moment to just rattle off the rosters LCS style and give these guys a brief moment in the spotlight before the blood and sweat starts flying everywhere. So over on the blue team, we've got Sparks Plugs. Up in the top lane is Llama Man. In the jungle is Saber Lipopet. In the mid lane role, it's Vanier WT. 80 carry is Deadpool Gambit. And of course, last but not least, is Supporter Feed in the support role.
And on the red side, looking for GF, they're rocking Sabio top lane, Flyers in the jungle, Spice in the mid lane, Jojo789 as their AD carry with Mr. Jax coming in from the mid lane, going to support.
And it looks like already looking for a GF, clumping up, trying to see if they can't find themselves an early invade here. They've got the Mr. Jax hook early on in the game, so they can potentially catch people out. But Sparks Plugs is not one to be deterred themselves. They're already clumped up, expecting aggressive plays like this to occur, and they know that one of the best ways to defend against this is kind of to go full force against it and see who's got the most guts. That being said, if these two teams clash, who do you think has the better level 1?
I think that looking for GF, they need to get someone immediately. They have the Thresh, and they've got the Taliyah, who can be fairly bursty here. But after that, their sustained damage isn't quite as strong as on the side of Sparks Plugs, who will start to get a lot of damage from Orianna's passive barrier as this fight extends. Right at the beginning, Orianna, she's likely only got her Q, possibly Command Protect. It won't do much when it first breaks out, but if it drags on, if it were able to pull, then the Orianna would start to come ahead as her auto attack racks up damage over time. The same going for Tristana with her explosive charge, but nothing will come of it in the early game, and now we see fairly standard starts come out across the board.
Yep, just a quick retreat after what looked to be aggressive turned out to be a defensive play there. Both these teams actually just stacking up just in case anyone face checked in and looked to get some deep ward coverage. Like I was saying before, maybe that early catch. Both junglers starting on the strong side of the map, getting that duo leash out of their bottom lane, and then continuing on normal routes, looking to try to get that early pressure up in the top lane to try to set the tides in their team's favor.
I have to say I'm really surprised to see both supports opting for Relic Shield. Not so much based on which supports they're playing, but just ever since patch 14 dropped, it feels like there's an ancient coin in every game. It's nice to see things return to normal a little bit.
Yeah, I think that
not necessarily optimal.
There's just a lot of actual value that's in the Relic Shield that I think people had forgotten. They're like, ooh, Ancient Coin is buffed. Let me try that and see what's going on with that thing. But the bottom line is if you're looking to get tanky at all in this bottom lane, you're going to want to have some sort of health associated with your champion. So Relic Shield is the way to go. Top lane, a little bit of aggressive trading there between Llama Man and Sabio, but nothing to really come of it.
It's Saber Lipopet. He's poking his head into Flyers' jungle. Just kind of moving in and dashing his way out. And yeah, I totally agree with all of that for the Nautilus especially. Oh, this is getting exciting.
Yep, top lane Sabio going very aggressive here, just landing auto attack after auto attack to chunk down Llama Man. Now in a little bit of a dire situation as he's already burned through all of his potions, so he's really got to be careful here against this potentially impending gank if Warwick can get up there. But Lee Sin to match. It looks like Sabio's forced to flash out. The flash gets popped. Saper Pet, Saper jumps under the turret, not going to find anything there. Counter gank from Flyers comes in. He's flying in with the Blood Hunt movement speed. First blood picked up there, and that's going to be a huge one as Flyers picks up a refresh on that double buff.
An unfortunate desperation gank from Saper Livipet. Too many things missed at the beginning of that for it to go right. Then the Warwick gets the blood sent on. He's finished a camp. He's coming into this at level 4, whereas the Lee Sin's still only at level 3. And it's able to turn into a quick and easy counter gank, a 2-0 in favor of looking for GF.
Overextended there just a little bit, and as we see on the bottom lane, supporter feed playing this Nautilus very aggressively, constantly looking for hooks on the enemy team, but so far it's not netted them anything. Mr. Jax finds a hook onto Deadpool Gambit, but not really looking for or not really finding the damage they need. Good hook back by supporter feed to get additional shots on that explosive charge, chunking down the health bar of JoJo, but still not enough to deter them from staying in the lane and continuing this farm.
Yeah, good trades from both bot lanes. Nothing too exciting coming out of it, and now there's a gank mid lane.
Yeah, mid lane Flyers once again putting on this pressure as much as possible for his solo laners. Gets the flash out of Vanir, as well as I think the Ghost there. So both summoners down for this Orianna. Very vulnerable at the moment.
Flyers has been looking pretty great so far in these first 5 minutes. His pathing has been very confident and moves exactly where it needs to be. He gets the flash and the ghost out of Vanir just by walking into mid lane, and now he's able to quickly secure the Scuttle Crab, which will be huge once this Infernal starts to become an option within the next 2 minutes.
Very true. 5 minutes into the game, it's already a 2-kill lead for Looking For GF, sitting about 1.1k gold up over Sparks Plug. So these guys opening up the set very strong here. And like you were saying, a lot of it on the back of Flyers, who's making very good movements through the jungle, putting pressure up on this top half of the map and making sure that both Spice and Sabio feel very confident as they play out their laning phase. Bottom lane, we're just watching a supporter feed and Deadpool Gambit just try to put the pressure onto Mr. Jax and JoJo, keeping them under this turret. And while they are a little bit vulnerable to the Warwick gank, they're feeling confident in their positioning here. They're not too opposed to potentially going for a 3v2, but they definitely need to be careful on how they do it, because there's a lot of movement that can come out of the team of Looking For GF.
Yeah, Spice is surfing around looking for something. Opts to just try and get a surprise trade on Vanir. Doesn't go too well, but nothing is... He gives up nothing for it. Something I am a little upset about, frankly, is the Relic Shield on the Thresh. While I agree, it is definitely an underrated item since the coin has become so popular. In certain situations, Thresh has always had a bit of a choice on it, and just especially with the comps here, gank going a little bit wide, I feel that the coin would have been better. You can either get the move speed rush faster than if you were to build a Righteous Glory, and you're not getting as much out of the defensive side of Face of the Mountain or the Eye of the Watchers, as there are less targets to peel for. The Sivir's not going to be in as much of a position of danger, and even then she's not as vital to your composition for the majority of the game. We'll see how that goes, and a little bit of a trade coming in on the top lane should end fairly simply, but Sabio, he's really exerting himself onto this lane, already coming up with a 20 CS lead at the 7-minute mark, where all other lanes are completely even in CS.
Yeah, Sabio definitely knows how to play this Gnar very well. The trades that Llama Man are going for always want to be very quick, very snappy,
nice solo.
But Sabio always extends them out 3 or 4 auto attacks beyond that and ends up winning that trade pretty handedly. Flyers, like you were saying, picking up that Infernal Drake for his team, using that Warwick sustain to its maximum potential there to just continue this early game domination.
Yeah, and still continuing to look good, having this nice farm into just clean farm-based pathing overall. from Flyers. I'm liking it. It's very, very satisfying to watch. Perhaps not taking risks where he should be, but so far I have no real complaints about him.
Very true. And what do you think about this this build he's going for here? He's got the early game advantage, but instead he's going for the more defensive route, going for that Bammy Cinder, I assume into a Cinder Hulk early on, rather than like a Warrior's enchant on his jungle item.
Well, it really is just continuing to look for a farm at the end of it. Oh, and now gets the seismic shove, but the command shockwave deterring him from going too deep on it. Ghost comes through from Veneer to get away. Yeah, but the Bommies is much better at the end of the day for just farming camps. With what he had built, I am a little bit surprised to see that he didn't go for the Tiamat, but it gives you kind of a bit of both worlds. Although maybe not best of neither, certainly. Now we can dip his head in here.
All right, Flyers catching out Saber Pet once again as he just tries to get out of his jungle, ends up throwing down that ultimate from Warwick just to hop over the wall thanks to the Blast Cone assistance on that escape as well. Ends up losing control of his top side of the jungle, but it looks like Flyers is not going to punish. Bottom lane, a little bit of aggression onto JoJo, but no committal there, as once again it looks like J4 are going to be trumping onto Sabio, trying to defend his jungler, but he's still in threat as Flyers comes turning around the corner. Now Llama Man's been zoned out of the fight completely as well. Saper Lipopet once again just forced to run into the safety of his turret and lose control of that topside jungle.
Yeah, Saper Lipopet, he was reacting quite late to that. It was Flyers had landed 2 auto attacks and his Q onto Saper before Saper started to go, oh goodness, there's a giant wolf gnawing on my butt here, and he ward hopped over the wall and started to resolve a bit. But just something you have to be pretty cognizant of as a jungler. While it is very important to pay attention to your lanes at all times, you have to be able to manage your attention and pay attention to yourself as well.
Weaver's wall comes out, and it's a good gank out of Spice, but he might go down here. Flashes away from Lee Sin as he goes down to keep himself alive. Now Llama Man's under threat underneath the turret. Sabio taking one more auto attack from the turret. Nope, actually it's tanked up by Flyers, and they get 2 clean kills.
Yeah, the way he positioned in between those auto attacks was very aggressive and had me clenching onto my stomach, but he knew the turret range, swapped the aggro rate onto Flyers, looked really sketchy for a second there, but came out very clean, as Sabio's Gnar has been looking this game. Played out the laning phase harassment that he's supposed to have over the Jarvan quite nicely, and he's just been kind of shown off a little bit here and there. Very interesting to see, and the first brick will be going over to looking for GF, bringing it out to a 3.5k gold lead for them.
TP coming in through the bottom lane here. It looks like Llama Man wants to make some money back. They end up getting some good damage onto Mr. Jax. They do pick up the kill here, but they need to extend this into another objective. They just lost their top lane outer turret, and they've got to get some team gold flowing.
Yeah, so pardon me there. It was 4.5k gold lead. Now it's a 3.5k gold lead. Thankfully, the game instantly resolved itself to make me right. If only all things in life worked out that way. They're looking to get some damage onto the turret, but thanks to the wave clear of Sivir, probably won't be able to finish that off. Now Sabio.
Down bottom lane, Sabio comes in, putting some pressure onto Deadpool Gambit. He's going very low here. JoJo with the ultimate is able to get the rest of the team in and relevant. Spice cannot finish off Deadpool Gambit, and now they've got 2 low, running away. Warwick's on the tops of the map, so he cannot clean this up. Saber Pet jumps over the wall onto Spice, but Spice knows that he can out-damage this Lee Sin at this stage. Q onto Gnar. Gnar just completely obliterates him against that wall and just says, we're going to continue getting this turret. We need this global goal.
Yeah, Saber looks tragically indecisive there. He wasn't sure whether he needed to go on to the Talia, and he spent so much time making that decision that Spio and the rest of the team were able to quickly collapse onto him, clean up a nice and easy kill, followed by a turret. And looking for GF, they are accelerating this game quite quickly, which is what you need to do when you're up against this comp that has the edge on you in scaling just a little bit.
I have been informed that the top laner for looking for GF's name is pronounced SBO rather than Sabio. So I will make that adjustment. I apologize. And yeah, we'll continue on with the game here. A little bit of ward clearing coming out from support or feed. Just making sure that they defend their jungle as best as they can. Once again, that knockback from Spice just pushing Vanir out of this lane. Maybe some coverage needed by the jungler. So, yeah. Looks like Looking for GF is in a very dominant position here at the 13-minute mark. 5k gold lead for them, and a dragon spawning here in 10 seconds. An Earth Drake going to be available on the board. What are some of the things that Sparks Plugs can try to do to get themselves back into this game?
They're going to need to get a good pick with these tools they have. They've got the Nautilus Hook, they've got the Lee Sin Kick, they've got the Jarvan. These tools can easily pick someone off if they are slightly overextended, can keep doing that again and again, and just hit the refresh on that, try and get some gold back this way through shutdowns or some such, and then take objectives while you're in a 4v5. Now they're setting up over Earth Drake and somehow have the dominant start on it. Looks like Flyers is going to try and trade for Rift Herald. He might not even have to trade, he can just run down now.
Yep. A lot of hesitation coming out here for Sparks Plug. They're not sure where the jungler was during this time, so they just were not willing to commit. They know the enemy team's got a lot of gold under their belt, and they've got that advantage. Actually, the instant Rift Herald pop up in the top lane, Flyers just says, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to start split pushing now because I know that there's no one on the enemy team that can take me 1v1. They have to send multiple.
Yeah, Llama-Man does not have TP, so he'll be able to just hit. That Rift Herald is going to be getting a lot of damage. Flyers, though, he doesn't opt to finish off the turret himself. He's going straight for the blue buff, but it looks like the Rift Herald might be able to do it on its own with the huge wave up top lane as well.
Hooking onto SBO there, but they just disengage the fight.
Paper Lip Effect goes in.
Yep, they're able to get the blue buff, but good kick back into the enemy team. Shockwave actually doesn't hit anyone there as SBO jumps right in. He's trying to get enough energy to transform into Meganar, but can't quite get there. Flyers on the front line gets a good fear onto supporter feed, but they still can't quite catch up to the rest of the team. They end up netting themselves a second turret there, but no additional kills after that Lee Sin.
An unfortunate situation for Safer Lipabet. He had the right idea. He had a great pick to finish off his team. Bit of a late reaction from Vanir. The Shockwave does not come through in time, goes completely wide, and without two of these ultimates that are big in these fights, it was very easy for Looking GF to
Connects
do
onto
this.
Orianna, jump right under the turret, and SPO absolutely obliterates the enemy team with CC there. Tristana picks up one kill on Mr. Jax, but looks like overall they end up being on the losing end of that fight as, once again, Looking for GF in this dominant position continue going through. SPO does not like that kick coming through, turned for the stun, couldn't quite find it. Weaver's wall will block out supporter feed and just send him to his doom, as it looks like Deadpool Gambit just can't quite put out the damage right now. Just not enough items complete at this stage.
Two fights in a row now, very quickly, one after the other, no less, where Sparks Plugs have not been on the same page in these fights. They look to punish what was frankly an overextension out of Looking for GF, where they're pushing up too far with an advantage that they have, but they've started to get low, they've got a lot of unspent gold, but their execution of punishing this extension isn't clean enough. They're not on the same page. They've got Llama-Man kind of going in, and all he does is set up a giant wall for Gnar to smash people into and remind us why the Narvin was 17-4 in the LCS at one point. And it's unfortunate when you see plays like this where the right idea is behind them, but the execution is so poor that it doesn't matter.
It just feels like they don't have a person to really rally behind in their decision making. I bet there's a lot of voices going on in the voice comms rather than, just a few people really making the decisions and the others following up, knowing what their jobs are supposed to be at any given time, and then using the overall call to control their movement across the map. It was shown by that dragon hesitation when the Mountain Drake was honestly fully available to them, but due to their lack of vision and lack of ability to even test the enemy team by just hitting the Drake and seeing what the map movement looks like, they just didn't get anything done. It's a much slower team, it looks like, compared to Looking for GF.
It's very difficult to find the shot callers that teams need. Sometimes people seem to, in these leagues, very rarely seem to while they may have a great idea of how to play out the game and how the macro should be played, it's very rare that you find someone who has the communication skills to match it. They have the strong, clear voice. They know how to address all their teammates in a manner that gets them exactly where they need to be and all on the same page, ready to do something. It's not just in-game, it's also talking out of game or talking before skirmishes. Okay, when this ability lands, you need to immediately follow up with this ability. Things like this are so huge in making your macro look cleaner, making your engages look cleaner, making your game as a whole just look cleaner.
Right
and
now,
it seems to be the downfall of most of these teams, unfortunately.
Yeah, and even in the LCS, we saw for a long time, even TSM was struggling with their communication, just saying that it was the largest contributing factor to their underperformance. And yeah, it's just hard to get on that same page with your team. That being said, though, it looks like Looking for GF is going for a 4-1 split push strategy with Spice down in the bottom lane. No TP available on that champion, but they do have the Weaver's Wall they can use to try to, once again, cut off the retreat path for Sparks Plugs and just use it for Spice so he can get back to these fights. Bottom lane, good damage out of Lava Man onto Spice, just forces the flash out of that Talia and just completely dissuades the split push play.
Llama Man giving his team the breath that they sorely need. He's able to dissuade the split push. He has the pressure again, and it'll be short-lived, but they have an opportunity here to, if not make a play, then at least get some CS, catch a breather, feel the space, and try and start getting back into it.
Yeah, this is the moment where Sparks Plugs really need to be talking and saying, all right, who's our focus target? Who are we looking to catch out? Because when you've got a situation like this, where Flyers is completely out of position and no one around to help him out, you've got to have the damage ready to go to pick him off.
Great
Llama
Shockwave.
Man with the last hit. It looks like Shockwave's going to land on 3 members here, taking out supporter Feed. SBO jumping into the fight once again. Still no Meganar ready to go, but they've got the damage out of Spice to make up for it here. 3 kills picked up here for Looking for GF, and only 1 loss to the likes of Flyers.
A fight that started out looking so good for Sparks Plugs quickly turns on its head. Their execution at some points looked good, but again, their focus was across the board. They had a Lee Sin kick onto the 1 target, they had the Orianna ball onto another 2 targets. It's not how you can afford to play out these fights. They get punished for it. And now, Looking for GF, they're responding appropriately. They take the inhibitor, and on the way out, they're grabbing all the camps, refreshing their vision on the map, and looking to shove some more waves in and get a quick reset.
Yeah, and at this stage of the game, it's probably that point where you want to see Looking for GF paying attention to this Baron buff. With the amount of damage that's actually available on their Warwick and how much healing he's got under his belt as well, it should be no problem for them to actually threaten this thing and just wait out the push of the super minions down in the mid lane. It's a little bit early, but they've got such a lead here with this 10k gold lead that even if they end up chunking themselves a little bit low, they can still turn and win a fight.
Yep, they've got a lot of room to breathe on many of these plays. And one thing worth addressing here is the drastic difference in 80 carry power. While Deadpool Gambit, he is looking fine by his scoreline. He has not had any drastic moments where he's been caught out. He's still set so much farther behind than JoJo 789. JoJo having the Infinity Edge completed, having the Phantom Dancer completed, having his boots completed, and Deadpool Gambit only having a Static Shiv completed. He has components of the Infinity Edge, he has components of his boots, has not been able to complete a second full including his boots, which is a really unfortunate position to be in. Your scaling is very heavily reliant on this Tristana, and she is drastically behind. Catching giant waves like this will help, but the problem is now they've left themselves open for plays.
Yep, good jump in by Flyers and good Weaver's Wall, but it puts Spice out of position. It looks like JoJo on the back end, though, is able to put out massive damage here, and because Flyers is just so sustainable as well, he's able to pick up some kills on his own. Triple kill here for JoJo, and 1 kill pickup for Flyers. It looks like the last man standing is Deadpool Gambit, as you were saying before, very far behind, but still willing to scrap and try to defend his base, but to no avail as they just poke him down low under the turret. The flash to crit from JoJo to just execute that Tristana, and they're just going to go ahead and end the game here at 22 minutes. Looking for GF just says, we have no time to play around. It's Saturday, man. I got stuff to do. Let's just close out this game nice and quick and move on to the next one.
Yeah, and what more is there to be said? They utilized their comp very well. They used the tools that their champions had to get these engages from these neat little angles. catch that out again and again and take game number 1.
Yeah, very, very clean play coming out of Looking for GF on the back of some early pressure in the mid and top lane out of Flyers. Some clean play into an extension of jungle pressure over Saber Lipopet. There's just no way that Lee Sin can come back from that early deficit after not only dying, but then starting to have that Warwick pressure put down on him in his own jungle. What are some of the things that Sparks Plugs can be doing to try to adjust for game number 2? There's definitely a lot of stuff they can be looking for here.
There's so many things to pick at. I would open with the composition. Get a composition that's more on the same page as itself. Have it with strong focal points. Maybe you're just looking for engage, maybe for poke. The other thing I would say is try and take a breather. Try and collect yourselves. Have some kind of group meeting. Just get onto the same page somehow. But the problems they were showing don't look like something that can be solved in 10 minutes between games.
Yep, should be a rough one here for Sparks Plugs. That being said, Looking for GF appearing to be quite strong in the series. But guys, we're going to get you back into game number 2 of Sparks Plugs versus Looking for GF. Go ahead and get yourself a drink, use the bathroom, grab some chips, do what you got to do to enjoy the set. We'll be back here once again on Ascension eSports in just a couple minutes.